I was finally in a country that was essentially my country, where I would have been if there was no genocide.
A considerable population is in danger, ravaged by sickness and privations of every kind, by outrages including murder, refugees robbed of everything they possessed.
And then I realized that I didn't know any of the food. So I kind of set out to write a cookbook. I physically drove around the country, village to village, gathering these recipes that I've never heard of and tons of American Armenians had never heard of. But if you were from Armenia, these were things that people grew up with.
A woman invited us into her home. She brings out a jar and it's all pickled meat.
The best. It's called gavurma. So they take meat and you boil it. You put it in the jar and then you add a bunch of clarified butter. Who figured this part out, that if you just stick it into fat, it's not gonna go bad? Yeah, some of the food history stuff is amazing.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have the great Arazada with us here today, of online cooking fame and also a fellow bow hunter. And he is one of those wonderful people out pushing the field to plate movement and probably doing it better than anybody else. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, man. It's great to be here.
I find you as an intriguing individual. You've got a very cool story, and you're a real hard guy to put into a box, because you're not just a great chef, but you're also a guy that loves to go out in the field, and you're in LA and you're not afraid to tell people you're a bow hunter.
Definitely.
So there's some dinners you're not going to get invited to.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, out here, it's a mixed bag. You never know who you're talking to. I mean, some people are all about it. Some people are just completely against it. And I think it's part of nature. If you're not harvesting your own food, if you're eating meat and you're not okay with going to get it, I can't get behind that.
Yeah, it's interesting that no matter if you're going to eat, something's got to die.
Absolutely. And that's the truth. The fact of the matter is, somewhere down the line, somebody's doing the dirty work. And I talked to a bunch of people, and they would much rather, go to the grocery store and they never see anything die. And they think we're doing like harm to the world, which doesn't make any sense to me. Honestly, it's field to plate is the natural way to do it. And, eating meat that's from the land as opposed to filled with hormones and all this other garbage, it's just how I want to feed my family.
Yeah, if I were king, what I would do, I would have like a preserve where it was all like kudu, eland, African antelope that were just out there, and like we'd make sure they lived a great life. And then somehow we just like turn the lights off one day, and we'd have our, we'd have our own antelope venison to enjoy. I talk to people, and I notice some wealthy people, and they're doing this with their cattle, and it's kind of a food in America, not so much in the rest of the world, but food in America is no longer, let's say, it's far from natural. It's no longer pure. It's adulterated. So it's interesting that the accoutrement now of wealth is to have your own private herd of cows, your own gardens, which are of great variety. But that's where we've had to move. So like guys like you are pushing this into the forefront and trying to tell people, hey, you can do this on your own. Get out there and you go grab it and enjoy the ancestral call to the hunt.
Exactly. I mean, look, if I had millions of dollars, I would have a ranch and do everything myself. I don't go out and trophy hunt per se. Like, it's cool to get something with some big antlers, but I'm truly after the meat. You know what I mean? I don't mind going for a doe hunt if I can get a doe tag. Like, I'm literally out there trying to harvest food for my family in the most natural sense. I mean, the animals out there are eating their natural food, their natural habitat, they're living a good life. And it's honestly, it's a blessing. And I think everybody can do it. It just takes a little effort. I mean, I give all the kudos to rifle hunters. I'm a bow hunter since the day I picked up a bow. I mean, I've had rifle kills. But since the day I picked up a bow, I fell in love with it. And I've been bow hunting ever since. And it adds like another layer of challenge to it. It's a little more primitive, I think. But it's something that everybody should experience. And it's something that everybody, I feel like, should kind of do if you're a meat eater, which you should be because we're omnivores.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's something wild about letting an arrow go at something. It's a much different sensation. And you know how they say the bow needs to become an extension of your arm?
Absolutely. Like, I mean, look at this thing.
Yeah,
I'm always
look at you, man. Man, that's one of the like most poignant tattoos that I've seen a person have to express their love of something. That is cool, dude. That is cool.
I literally it's a Native American arrow that I was on some vacation and I saw it at some like artifact store and I bought it and it's been hanging on my wall was hanging on my wall for years. And I was like, I took it to a tattoo artist that does realism. And I said, I want this on my arm. The apple signifies some other things. And it's an extension of me. I shoot every day. I love it. It is part of my soul and existence.
Yeah, it's weird when you let that arrow go. You almost feel like when you see it hit or when you feel that, you feel like you touched it.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a different feeling. It also, it validates all the hard work because it's not something where you can just go out and you haven't shot in months and go and shoot. Like you worked for this, you worked up to it, you built up to it. And I shoot every day, but then there's, we go through spells where it's like 1 month I don't shoot, something happens, or it's like the off season. Right when you get back on the bow, your target frame goes from like here at 60 yards to like here, and you realize that this is something that you need to do constantly. And when you harvest that animal with the practice that you've done, it validates it. It hits different. You're up close and personal. You're really just in it.
I had a 4-year hiatus where I didn't hunt, and I spent a lot of my life like hunted or fished like almost 57 countries or something. And but it's wild when you get back to shooting and you get back to hunting, you all of a sudden start making all your rookie mistakes again. And you almost have to make them to remember them.
Yeah, it's strange. It's strange.
I wish I had written them all down and then read it before every time I go hunting. I need to read like Brady's common 20 mistakes, simple stuff too. It's like don't
approach the animal too quickly.
Yeah, like watch the wind. It's just so crazy how some of the stuff you forget, or like making sure that your bolt is in the right place. Some people have like those the half cock bolt, and then you go out there and you go to pull the trigger and nothing happens, and it's the sound of your own stupidity ringing through your brain.
Safety on.
Yeah, stuff like that. So you and I talked a little about this. And so you are of Egyptian Armenian descent. Which in some ways puts you uniquely in the middle of a very old struggle. For those in the audience that don't know, one of the largest genocides in modern history occurred at the hands of the Ottoman Empire, against the Armenian people. And some estimates have as many as 2 million people killed or displaced, and with hundreds of thousands of women forced into harems. And they were, and so many of them were scarred visibly, like as to humiliate them. It was one of those hidden things, and for a variety of reasons, it is not acknowledged by many countries. I think there's only 1 or 2 countries that will even acknowledge that this happened.
Yeah, it's starting to turn over a little bit more. I think a few more countries have kind of acknowledged it, but everybody kind of strays away from the genocide topic because I guess if the countries accept it, or enough countries, there's something that Turkey would have to do, or some sort of
Reparations or
like,
something.
yeah. So everybody kind of refrains from it. And it's all, part of this whole political system that, nobody wants to piss the other person off because of something or another. I know like the US has bases in Turkey and a bunch of different things. So like a very high level political thing where nobody is actually
Taking
accepting that it
accountability.
happened. But I mean, it's very well documented. It's not something that was fake. I mean, even Hitler addressed it when he kind of convinced the Germans when he did what he did. Like during the Holocaust, he said, "Look, nobody remembers the Armenian genocide," and that's quoted. So it's pretty nuts.
I've always been a big reader, and I was fascinated and wanted to learn more about the Armenian genocide. And then I'm also fascinated just with Armenia as a country. And so a number of years ago, I had the fortunate opportunity to go there and hunt. And it was one of the wildest experiences I've ever had because we were a guest of a general there.
That's
And
awesome.
when I come into a country, I have to spend a lot of time filling out firearms permits before and after. And so we had hunting permits, but when we showed up, the guy, this general, just meets us at the airplane, and this was a big, like British Airways or some kind of large company jet, and he pulls us off the plane while everyone's still on it, and he pulls us over where the luggage cart is, and he goes, "All right, guys, get your guns." And there's people all over the place, so we pull these guns out, and I'm thinking he's going to take us outside the airport, and no, we walked through, and this airport was so coagulated with people in Yerevan that it was like being on a New York sidewalk with a hunting rifle on your arm, and it was so interesting. No one really batted an eye. But
Yeah.
we walked right out of that airport and went into some of the most beautiful country, those mountains and the villages. It is like it's so charming. But real quick, I want to tell you what we were lucky enough that we shot an ibex, and we were there were about the prominence of this mountain was probably about 2,500 feet, but it had a steep rock face on one side. And it was real rugged. And after we shot this, I was like, "How are we going to get it down? We're just like three guys." And this Armenian cat who had a lot of experience in the mountains, he said, "Listen, I'm just going to throw it down." And I said, "You can't do that, man. You're going to hurt this animal. You're going to break its horns and
Yeah.
stuff." He goes, "I have tried to break these with a sledgehammer, and you can't
No
do it."
way.
And so he sent that thing tumbling a couple thousand feet, and it's rolling down the highway, rolling down the mountain, and banging and flopping and flipping. And the body was all torn up, but there wasn't even a chip in the horns.
That's amazing. Ibex is definitely on my list. It's one of the animals I haven't harvested yet. It's definitely on the list.
You do that with a bow, and you'll be on the list of badasses, man. That's a tough deal.
Yeah, that's definitely something I want to do.
Have you been to
100%.
Armenia?
I mean, I've been to Armenia. So I actually went for the first time in 2016. Because my family was from Egypt. So the way it works is like the diaspora kind of goes out, genocide happened, and everyone kind of adopted a new country, kind of. And my family ended up in Egypt. So they grew up Egyptian Armenian. We had family in Egypt, but none in Armenia. And I finally went in 2016. And when I got there, I realized, I didn't recognize it was a little culture shock because I was finally in a country that was essentially my country where I would have been if there was no genocide, but like everybody's speaking my language or a language that I learned. The letters on the walls are all in something that I learned. There's no secret language anymore. Like if I wanted to yell at my brother or something in a grocery store, everyone's gonna understand. So
Yeah.
it's a little shell shock. But very cool. And then I realized that I didn't know any of the food. So we grew up with kind of a Middle Eastern influence. Like, so the diaspora absorbs whatever country kind of they went to. So everybody has a slightly different version of what their Armenian food is. When I went to Armenia the first time, I was like, whoa, I don't recognize any of this. So I kind of set out to write a cookbook. And in that journey, we got a publishing deal through Chronicle Books in San Francisco. and we kind of put boots on the ground. And I was going every 6 months for about 4 years to write this book. And
Wow.
I physically drove around the country, village to village, gathering these recipes that I've never heard of, and tons of American Armenians had never heard of. But if you were from Armenia, these were things that people grew up with. So I was able to get that published. It's done really well, and that kind of sparked my love for the country itself. I mean, there's so much to see and do out there. It's all rivers and mountains and forests, and it's pretty incredible.
Yeah. So what is some quintessential flagship Armenian food?
If you talk about American Armenians, you'll immediately, everyone's like kebab. You know what I mean? You're talking about kebab, you're talking about hummus, you're talking about muteba, which are all not necessarily Armenian, but Armenians out here eat them. In Armenia, some like dishes that are fire are things like lavash wrapped trout. So lavash is Armenian flatbread. It is, well, I mean, we wrap our babies in it. It's on every table. It's actually the name of my book because the whole table is kind of based around this bread. Uh, honestly, it's one of the least calorie, least carbohydrate breads you can eat. So it's super healthy for you.
Is the bread a delivery system? Is that what it is?
So it's just a super thin bread that you kind of just eat with everything. And this dish, there's a dish called lavash. It's lavash wrapped trout, where you essentially take trout. There's only one body of water really in Armenia. It's Lake Sevan, and they get the Sevan trout. Ishkhan is the Armenian word for trout. And then they do this dish where you take the trout, wrap it in lavash. Well, you take the trout, you stuff it with a little butter and tarragon, wrap it in the lavash, and then you stick it in the oven. And in about 15 minutes, when you pull it out, it's crispy lavash on the outside, soft, steamy fish on the inside. It resembles a fish en papillote, like the French dish, where you wrap it in paper and cook it. But this one, you kind of eat the paper. So you get the crunchy, steamy dish all together. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah, you're gonna have to whip that up for me sometime when I come out to LA, man.
100%.
We get a lot of people that are interested in travel that write to me, and if I were to encourage people to go one interesting place, and I'm talking about like somewhere that is such a unique experience that there's not anything relative to it, and you're not going to hear about it anywhere. There's not a ton of people posting Instagram travel to Armenia, but one of the cool things about it, there's a few places in India where this occurs, but not around the world like it does in Armenia. When you walk through an Armenian village and you're a foreigner, everyone's going to invite you in, and the hospitality is crazy, and there is no more sincere hospitality than that coming from poor people. And these poor, humble people are very generous. A woman invited us into her home, and we were just walking. We had finished our hunt, and we just wanted to walk around the village. And so there's this mountain, this house with this like a mountain with this house hanging off the side of it. And the lady's walking out front, and her teeth are all capped with metal. And the back teeth are all gold. And the reason that they had gold in their teeth is during the Soviet years, when they were controlled by the Soviet Union, they weren't allowed to have wealth. And so people would put gold in their teeth. They would even make cavities to fill with gold so that they could have something in the event of emergency to trade with. So that's the kind of person people were talking. She invites us into the house, and she gives us some tea, and then she goes and she moves a picture down in her basement, and there's a little cave that she's got in the wall where she stored her food to keep it protected for safety. And she brings out a jar, and it's all pickled meat.
The best.
Yeah, what is that?
So that's gavurma. So in Armenia, a lot of the practices are preservation of meat, longevity. So back in the day, I mean, we're an ancient civilization, ancient culture. We were one of the first countries to accept Christianity as a whole. So we're talking way back, and there was no refrigeration, and their whole thing was to figure out how to get meat and fruit preserved through the winters, because winters kind of get tough out there. That dish is a dish that I didn't grow up with. It's called gavurma. So they take meat and you boil it, and it's kind of like cooked to death, and then you put it in the jar, and then you add a bunch of clarified butter, and then the butter kind of seals it in
Yeah.
and lets you keep it, and it's in a cool dark place. It lasts months because the butter seals it in, and it's almost, it's preserved.
Yeah, it's really interesting. A lot of people will wonder, how did people preserve food back in the day? And one of the methods that was really effective was you would get a real fatty substance like butter or lard, and they would get trunks. And around, like the settlers in America, they would get trunks and they would fill it with lard, and they would store their meat down in the lard, and it could last months there.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah,
It's amazing.
it's really cool.
Some of this stuff, yeah, it's like, who figured that out? That's like the thing that always gets me. You know what I mean? Who figured this part out, that if you just stick it into fat, it's not going to go bad. Yeah, some of the food history stuff is amazing.
Yeah, it really, really is. Fat is a crucial component. If you're out in the woods and you're trying to live off the land, carbohydrates aren't going to sustain you. The protein's not. You have to get fat. And
Yep.
fat is kind of the hardest thing to find in the wild.
Yeah, everything's lean, right?
Everything's lean and everything's hunting for it. I'll tell you another interesting thing that happened because of some change in Armenian politics at the time. So a couple of years after I left Armenia, there was a change in administrations in that country. And just like that happens in our weaponized politics today, after the administration changed, the one in power tried to go after the old one. And so we were one of the few people that had brought like international trade and hunting. And so I was out on a fishing trip in Mexico, and I had some people house sitting. And this FBI agent comes to my house, and he wanted to know where I was, and a teenage girl answered it. And this was during the Obama years. She opens the door, and the FBI agent just walks in. And he's looking at all my mounts and asking where he is, and he's out, fishing or whatever. And so she gives him a card. I give this guy a call. He has all these questions, and I don't know what's going on. And so I just turned it over to an attorney. And evidently they were trying to get this past administration for illegal hunting, which they did.
Wow.
They did it legal. And so the attorney was real smart, and then they didn't want me. They wanted the people that were politicians in Armenia. And he said, "Yeah, he'll talk to you as long as you give him immunity." And the FBI agent lost his mind, started cussing. "We're not going to agree to that bullshit." Okay, well you're not going to talk to him, and so he didn't. So every time I have that mount at my home, every time I look at it, there's just a hell of a story. I'm like, that thing flew 2,500 foot off a side of a cliff, and then was almost confiscated by the FBI.
I think that's part of, so I mount my animals as well, and I think it helps, like when I explain it to my kids and I explain it to people, because you'll get an anti-hunter to walk in and be like, "Oh, you're mounting everything." Well, it's not that. I'm honoring it. And every time you look at that mount, you remember the story, you remember the journey, you remember what it took, how many days, a lot of them 7, 8, 10 days walking miles, and you remember it, and you're constantly honoring that animal because it fed you. And it's something that's important, I think, as opposed to just eating it and forgetting it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I'm not a trophy hunter. I'm more of a meat and experience hunter, and I like different animals, and I've kind of burnt through the novelty of it all because I've hunted a lot. But my favorite experience, I was on a quote trophy hunt in Central Africa.
Oh wow!
And the Central African Republic is literally, when I say this, it's the least developed country in the world. It is the wildest place. When I mean wild, it is the wildest piece of land I've ever been on. We had Arab poachers on horses running through the camp spraying AK-47s. We had a little cook tent where we ate, and I came back in the middle of the day to eat lunch, and I'm walking off the truck, and I see some kind of movement in the cook tent, and I look and I'm like, "What the hell is that?" I thought, that's not a person. and it was a pride of lions was in the cook tent. And they were like out where the oven was, and they're standing up on the
Wow.
table we were eating. And there, the lions don't have manes, and they look like scavenger gangsters, right? Like
Really?
they didn't look like any other lions. These were like the Bloods and the Crips of the lion world. And I
Yeah.
remember wild looking eyes. Like this thing looked like it had lived through an apocalypse. And so where the cook tent was, there was a circle of tents, and in the middle, well, about 50 yards away from the tents was the outhouse. And that night, walking to the outhouse, there was no moon, and it was black. And so what you had the flashlight, and what was outside of the flashlight didn't exist. And you talk about holding your pee, man. I did not want to walk out there that night. I felt like I was just going to get duked and ran over by like Ray Lewis and the Lions. Yeah. Anyways, this animal there is Lord Derby's giant eland. It doesn't need to drink water. Okay.
Wow.
And so it gets its moisture from the leaves that it eats, but it doesn't have to stop to eat. It's a browser. So it just walks along and eats off the trees. And so we found one group of these animals where we were, and we followed it 9 days, 160 miles. And when we
Wow.
get up to the male, it didn't have big horns, right? And the guys like thought I wasn't going to want to take it. And
Yeah.
we had been starving to death. We ran out of food. We ran out of water, and we had walked so much that I was like, "No, this is beautiful. I'm going to reach this to the culmination of the hunt." And so we took it, and we were so hungry. And this was like one of the most beautiful experiences. I had probably 5 or 6 local guys, and a professional hunter and me. And we were so hungry that we immediately field dressed the animal, and all we had to cook on was banana leaves. So we took dried banana leaves and put its liver on top of the banana leaves. And
Wow.
we ate that thing like cannibals. And it was one of the best. And I was looking at everyone had blood on their face, but it was like the most real, sincere moment of hunting that I ever had, because I needed food bad. And
Yeah.
I've said before, the difference between a good meal and a bad meal is a couple hours. You give it a couple days, and eland liver tastes like angels making love in your mouth, man.
You know, they say like some of the best experiences, the most memorable experiences out of everything come from some of the hardest times. You know, you don't remember that trip you took when you were 10 years old to Disneyland.
Yeah.
It was like, I went, it was fun. But you remember when you were starving in a tent, freezing your ass off with your buddy huddled in, trying to make a little fire to keep yourself warm. And when you come home, you're like, that was awesome. And you'll remember it forever.